Hello, folks. Glenn Calloway here for your entertainment. I just wanted to get set up here before I invite Robert Lawson to join me. Just give me a second here to get things rolling. Hope everyone is ready for a interesting conversation. Give me a chance to. I'm up a few minutes early, so. And there we go, ready to go. I am now 5 people joined us so far. This is awesome. Thank you so much. I'm just going to invite Robert to join us. His invite has been sent, so he'll join us shortly. Okay, here we go. So tonight we are going to, hey Glenn, how are you, my Canadian friend? Mike, I am fine. Thank you so much. Yeah, tonight we're going to talk about Vinyl Rundown is here. Talk about Miles Davis. My good friend Robert Lawson is a author. I want to promote his book. This is his latest book. He has 4 books. The author, Art and Soul of Stevie Van Zandt, Robert Lawson. Excellent read. I encourage you all to check it out. We're going to talk about Miles Davis tonight and maybe how to just what's the gateway into jazz and stuff like that. We'll figure it all out. Robert promises me he has an extensive Miles Davis catalog, so let's see what's going to happen there. I do want to mention before Rob comes up, the big news in the vinyl community today was that Rachel's ghost. Rachel has shut down her channel. Crazy stuff. I don't know what happened. I think, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to say anything, although I just want to say that from the time Rachel was on and I started my channel 5 years ago, she's been nothing but supportive and a friend. And I am, my heart goes out to her. We had total opposite viewpoints on politics. One of the reasons I didn't go on her chats because it was just too political for me. I just want to talk about music. That's all. I think Vinyl Rundown, if you want to know why she left, you can just just check in YouTube. There's lots of stuff going on about it. You'll catch on. Yes, and we have to talk about the passing of Garth Hudson from the band, gone at 87. The man was a legend, a world legend, especially a Canadian legend, and just a genius musician. He was really, you could argue he was the heart and soul of the band. He was the musical genius who, when the band was first getting together, he was only allowed to join because he had to tell his parents that he was teaching them music lessons. His parents didn't want him hanging around with those derelicts. But Larry Graves is in bed watching, might not comment much, but I'm watching. That's fine, Larry. Like I said, I'm still waiting for Robert to show up. Anybody has any questions or anything, but yeah, the band, wow. That's the last one, right? I don't think there's any more left. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. We've got 6 people watching now. That's great. I've got a few things. I'll show my collection quickly here. Obviously, I think the gateway to Miles Davis really is Kind of Blue. I mean, this is I think the biggest selling jazz album in history. So it's very bluesy, very modal, as they call it. And yeah, it's just great playing. It's fairly accessible. Garth was the last one. Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, 87 years old. Hey, Richard, how are you? Yeah, so I'm going to send Robert one more invite just in case he didn't get it. You never know. There, it says it's sent. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I don't have a lot of miles on vinyl, which I'm trying to figure out. Another favorite of mine is Milestones. And my favorite is Jack Johnson, the tribute to Jack Johnson. 2 songs on this, side 1, side 2, and just brilliant playing with John McLaughlin playing guitar. Fantastic stuff. Miles Davis, of course, live in Vienna. And what else have I got? That's about it on vinyl. Everything else is on CD. We'll wait and see. Please ask Robert what his top 3 Miles Davis albums are. I certainly will. There he is. He's ready. Here, folks, we've got Robert right here. Welcome to the stage. Robert, we're live. So there he is.
Hey, Glenn. Good to see you again.
I can't hear you.
Oh, no?
Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
I can hear you good.
Are you muted or something? I got no sound. Testing. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, I can't hear you. Well, he needs his guitar tech to come out. I got nothing. I can't hear you.
Just a sec.
I got nothing. Now I can't see you. He says it's my sound. I'm not do you have your speakers on? Okay, hold on. Oh man. Okay, let's do this again. Robert, come back. I'm sorry. Okay, we're back. Robert, we're on. We're good. Here's what happens. Robert, we're good. Come back. It was me. So my wife's laptop broke, and I lend her my laptop, and then I bring it back to do these chats and whatever, and she always mutes the volume, and every time I start these up, I forget to unmute the volume. Now poor Robert's running around trying to figure out what's wrong with his system.
Can you hear me now, Glenn?
Yes, I got you, buddy.
Oh, okay.
It was all my fault.
It was your fault.
Yes.
You son of a...
Yes, I am. And even worse. Now I can't see you, though. I just got a symbol on the screen.
Yeah,
there you are.
There we go.
My apologies. I was just saying that my wife borrows my laptop and she turns the volume down on it, and then I go to take it back and use it, and the last thing I look at is the volume control.
Right.
Oh, how are you, my friend?
I'm okay. Pretty good.
That's good. We got 14 people watching already. I'm quite happy about that. I think people are anxious to hear about Miles.
Great.
But before we get started, we need to do a plug for this great book, Solidarity Forever, The Art and Soul of Stevie Van Zandt by our good friend Robert Lawson. Excellent book. Highly recommend it. How are the sales going? You happy with it? Everything going good?
It's a little light, to be honest.
Yeah.
I never would have expected that. I'm actually getting some pushback from some Springsteen E Street Band podcasts and websites. They actually have turned down reviewing the book because they feel like it's uh, too much Steve Van Zandt content, I guess.
Wow, that's silly.
Yeah, I've had, I think it's up to like 6 different either websites or podcasts say, well, we reviewed his book, which was 4 years ago or 5 years ago now, and we reviewed the new HBO documentary. So that's enough for Steven. I'm like, come on, man.
No kidding.
I thought I'd have those guys in the palm of my hand. Nope.
Yeah. Wow. That would be great if you could get on some of those. Well, hopefully, good luck trying to get there. Okay, now everybody's saying I can hear him. I can hear you both. I can hear. Greetings from Florida. Wax and relax. Final listening room. Whereabouts in Florida are you? I'm interested because my daughter lives in Orlando. Anyway, we'll get on subject here. We got 17 people, and they're all anxious to hear about Miles Davis. So, I just wanted to ask you, like, I'm sure you're like most of us. We grew up on rock music, pop music. I'm going to assume that you did the same. You weren't, born listening to jazz. What was your gateway into jazz before even Miles Davis?
Actually, I think my gateway was Miles.
Was it?
That my dad is a big record collector, and he watches your show. Actually, he
Oh, cool.
he's been watching you for longer than I've been on.
Oh, wow. Pretty cool.
So he's a big record collector, still is a big record collector. But when I was a kid growing up, anytime he upgraded his vinyl copy of something, he'd give me the old one. So even though, when I was like 12 or 13 or something, all I cared about was like Kiss and Cheap Trick and Nazareth, he'd be giving me like a Larry Coryell album and the Hollies' greatest hits and just anything that, I was so into music. I just figured if he was giving me something, this had to be good.
Yeah.
So I'd just be listening to a lot of stuff, a lot younger maybe than some people, just because he was just passing me all his old copies of records every time he up. That's how I got like the Hollies' greatest hits, which became a huge album for me.
Yeah.
Just a lot of different stuff, and so there was a Miles' greatest hits that came my way because of that, and I think that's how I got it anyway.
And you dug it right when you were listening to it. You got into it right away.
Yeah, I liked it right away. It's funny though, that on that album, the version of "So What," which is one of Miles' trademark kind of songs, the version on there is with the orchestra that he did live at Carnegie Hall.
Oh.
So the first version of the song I ever heard was not the classic version. But yeah, so from there, just growing up in a house with a lot of records and a lot of music all the time. And when I was into rock stuff, I'm like a big Jeff Beck fan. So once you go through Jeff Beck's catalog, he gets fusiony.
Yeah,
And,
very.
with Blow by Blow and Wired. So that would lead me to John McLaughlin and Mahavishnu Orchestra, and then that comes back around to like the Miles electric stuff, like Bitches Brew, and it all kind of builds on each other until you get to a point where like I consider myself, I guess, primarily a 70s kind of rock guy, but like there's over like 300 or 400 jazz CDs here, so I'm pretty much a jazz guy too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I came into jazz in a really weird way from through bluegrass, because my bluegrass heroes of the early 70s and Newgrass Revival and David Grisman and Tony Rice and all these guys, they were just way too talented just to play 3-chord bluegrass songs, and they started incorporating a lot of jazz chords and a lot of jazz stuff into their music. And when Bela Fleck put out his first album when he was 18 years old, and I think it was 1979, Crossing the Tracks, he did a banjo version of Chick Corea's Spain, which is Sketches of Spain, that whole theme that runs through that album. And it just blew my frickin' mind. And from then on, it was like, okay, now now I gotta get into this.
Right.
So, and I listened to a little bit here and there, but it wasn't really until the 80s. And I was talking to somebody and I was really interested. And I said to the guy, he was a big jazz guy, said, where do I start? And he said, Kind of Blue. So
Yeah.
that's what I got. Took me a few listens, but I hung in there with it. And now, I mean, it's just after a while, you just go, man, this is just incredible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been a fan ever since. So, yeah. So Robert promises me he's got a pretty impressive collection of Miles Davis stuff here. 100 titles, you told me?
A while ago, I counted, this is like pre-pandemic, so this could be like 7 or 8 years ago. I counted all my Miles titles, and yes, there were like 100. So that number's definitely gone up, but a lot of them are like multi-disc sets.
Yeah.
So the amount of actual discs I have, I've pulled aside a whole bunch of, you can't see, I got stacks here of some, I tried to find the coolest stuff to kind of show that maybe some people haven't seen.
I'm interested in seeing some stuff.
So this will all go in your Amazon shopping cart. You'll be, a lot of you will be a lot poorer at the end of this.
Look, I've got a pen and a piece of paper ready.
Right.
So I suggest everyone else do the same. There's just in Orlando this weekend, another Florida dude, Douglas. Awesome. These guys are all warm. We're up here freezing our butts off. I'm heading to Florida March 4th. So I'll get warm too. Anyway, well, let's start. What do you want to start your show and tell with?
I guess the one thing I was thinking about this to kind of preface my Miles obsessions, like my two big heroes are Miles Davis and Bob Dylan. And what I think the similarity there is that both their careers are so long and so varied that almost any kind of a mood I'm in, I can go to their catalog and find something, which, you can't always, like some people change a little bit here and there, but, most artists, especially over a long career like that, don't have that many different variations. So
maybe Zappa might be the third one.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, so it's like if somebody says they don't. Somebody once told me they didn't like Miles because he's too noisy, and I said, well, that doesn't really make sense because stuff like Kind of Blue or Milestones or Sketches of Spain, there's some stuff that's very, very calming, and even the post bop stuff. So he's never just one thing. By the time he changes into electric instruments, things change and he gets heavier. Just before he goes on his 5-year sabbatical or his 5-year retirement in 1975, he gets really noisy and crazy live, where he'd have 3 electric guitars, and he'd even have a wah-wah pedal hooked up to his trumpet. And then when he came back in the mid 80s, he kind of goes for more of a commercial sound, where he's got drum machines. I mean,
he started covering Cyndi Lauper time after time and songs like that. Yeah,
so a lot of synthesizers, a lot of drum machines. It's still Miles Davis music, but so Miles' music is never just one thing. He covers so many different things. You could almost get rid of a lot of artists in your collection because you'd be covering so much with him. And I feel that same way with Dylan, going from folk to electric to gospel sound to all kinds of different things. So Miles just means a whole world of music to me under that banner.
Yeah, like I love the music. I think it's absolutely beautiful. If you think Miles is just a bunch of noise, there's the album he did. I believe it was a soundtrack for a movie in France, and it's called Censure pour Vidot or something. I don't know. You know the album I'm talking about? I only have it on a weird comp here. It's I don't know if it even shows up. It's how do I get that? Is that it? Yes. Yeah.
I have 3 different CDs of it.
That is the most beautiful album.
I knew this was one of your favorites, so I made sure I dug
It's
out.
so atmospheric and just so beautiful.
This one's from 1988. That was an early CD with some bonus tracks. This is actually a, I think this is a Russian bootleg of it. It's all the same tracks as this one, but the cover's a little bit different. And then this is a recent 2-disc, which has a whole bunch of alternate takes on the second disc. And
I gotta get that.
Yeah, so I do know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't even know how to. Do you know how to pronounce the title?
Lift to the Scaffold.
That's the English pronunciation?
That's the English translation for it.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
I've never seen the movie, but it's there was a Criterion DVD of it released a few years ago, and I was really tempted to get it because, yeah, the music is incredible, and he was performing with a bunch of French musicians, a French orchestra. Yeah, it's excellent. That's why I got 3. That's why I got 3 of them.
Wow. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Wax and Relax tells us his gateway drug for me was Miles' Round About Midnight, which led to Coltrane's My Favorite Things. Wow.
I got a lot of Coltrane too.
Yeah.
Not as much as I do of Miles, though.
Hello, DJ Trish. Hello, Ethan. And then that soundtrack is called Jazz Track in the US. Was not aware of that. Yeah, that's an album that's sitting in my Amazon cart. I got to order as I save up some money. Too much Christmas spending.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So what were you going to show us?
So a good starting point. They were doing this series of box sets for a while, where they take each kind of era of Miles' career, and they just so you get all the music from a specific era, and then they just load them up with alternate takes and outtakes as well. So these are almost all like 6 to like 8 disc box sets. This is the first one, and this is just Miles and Coltrane, 1955 to 61.
Wow. Now, are these sets that are available still today, or they're
some of them are going to be out of print for sure.
Yeah.
So you get a big, probably like 100-page booklet, and yeah, this is like 6 CDs just of Miles and Coltrane.
So do they take cuts from different albums? Like there's stuff from Kind of Blue on there and stuff, or is it all just live?
No, it's the complete studio recording. So
yeah.
So Kind of Blue will be in there in its entirety. Wow. I think I have 4 different versions of Kind of Blue.
Wow.
So anyway, that's the first one. The second one is Miles and Gil Evans. Again, complete studio recording. So that's going to have all of Sketches of Spain with alternates and other stuff that they were doing. This is the complete second quintet that he had.
That is one of those steel. Is that one of those steel case ones?
They all have the steel spines on them.
Yeah.
Some of them, the box is steel. The Coltrane Miles, this is a steel box, but they all have these metal spines they're quite heavy.
Yeah.
So that continues. Here's one for 65, 68. This is a thinner one. It's only 3 discs for In a Silent Way.
Okay.
The Cellar Door Sessions, 1970. This is a bunch of live stuff with John McLaughlin.
Oh, that's got to be good.
The On the Corner box.
Great album.
This one went out of print really early. I think there's 6 discs in that. I think I have 3 different versions of On the Corner as well, not counting this box set.
On the Corner, that's just precedes Bitches Brew, right? It's where he's kind of getting into the fusion stuff a little bit, or getting more influenced by Sly and people like that. Is that's right?
It's after Bitches Brew. After,
okay, all right.
Jack.
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah, so that's another multi-disc. You got the steel spine there.
I would love to have that.
And then Bitches Brew box.
Oh man.
And this is probably also, I think, just 4 discs maybe in that one. So any of these, if you see them around, they're they're really worth grabbing. Like I said, a lot of them go out of print real easy. People are asking for this one to get put back into production all the time. I don't know if Columbia will ever do that, but so just that alone, it's a huge amount of Miles discs that kind of cover every era, but really in depth too. If you don't care about tons and tons of alternate takes and studio chatter and all stuff like that, this might be a bit too much.
Yeah.
But not for me.
Are you getting into any of the bootleg series boxes?
I'm into all of them.
Up to oh my god. Okay, so I picked up volume 7. No, a month ago.
Right.
I was just listening to it even before we came on tonight. I'm just blown away by how good this is. That live show in Montreal is just.
Yeah, it's great, and I've had that on bootleg for a long time, but I was really happy that they finally released it officially.
Well, a friend of mine showed me an album. He's got it on vinyl. The Montreal concert. It was a record store day release.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Love
that's
to
right.
find that.
So this is volume 1 of the bootleg series.
Yes. Okay.
So that's live in Europe,
That's
'67.
the Europe one, right?
Yeah. So that's with that second quintet.
Because I've got just the single CD.
Right. I have that too.
Yeah.
I like those single disc samplers. I'm a sucker for those. Volume 2 is live in Europe, 1969. This is with Chick Corea, Wayne Shorter, Jack DeJohnette. I think I'm missing one of these actually. This is number 3. So that's 4 4 CDs. It's all of 1970 Fillmore recordings. This one is a real big one. This is 4 discs, but it covers a longer period because you get like 55 to 75. So earlier stuff like around midnight when he first did that song that somebody mentioned earlier, and then all the way up to like 1971 where he's doing Bitches Brew material and stuff like that. But all these come with like big booklets, and they'll show you ticket stubs from the events. And
I've been doing a lot of reading up on those sets because I definitely want to get more. And people say there's a lot of studio chatter on that one. I think the one you just showed, right? Is that the one? There's one of them where it's saying that it's like
not on this one. This is all live stuff.
Maybe it's number 5.
Yeah, this one there's a bunch of chatter on it in between takes. I don't know if I really say that there's a lot. I don't know if it's really, I mean, there's some. I'll admit that, but for a guy who never really spoke too much, I don't know if I can complain that Miles is talking too much on a record.
True.
So that's 5. Number 6 is the final European tour that Miles and John Coltrane did. This one is 4 CDs as well.
That's crazy.
So that's 6. I guess I do have them all then. That's 7.
And there's the number 8.
Is 8 out?
Yep.
Okay,
yeah. It's a big one too. It's like about 100 and. Why do I think the CD's like it's 100 and something? I thought I'm going to say $140 or something on Amazon. I think it might be the biggest set.
Well, they do keep putting out sets that are just like compilations of different periods of albums and stuff like that. So I don't know if that would specifically be part of the bootleg series because I feel like this one.
It's bootleg series 8. That's out. So, do you have a favorite era?
Not really. I kind of go back and forth a lot. Like for a really long time, the album Milestones was my favorite.
Yeah, Milestones is great.
All-time favorite. And it's still up there. But On the Corner is a real big one for me.
Yeah, I have very little Miles on vinyl, but the ones I do are my favorites, and Milestones definitely one of them.
Yeah, like when I got into Miles, I was really only into his acoustic early stuff for a long time. It took me a while before I started branching out into the electric stuff. But Feed to Kilimanjaro, which I think is the first one that Ron Carter is playing Fender electric bass. That's always been a favorite. Bitches Brew, of course, in a Silent Way. There's really, going back to Dylan. it's not a joke. It sounds like a joke, but years ago I made my top 10 list of Dylan albums, and there's like 16 albums on it because I just couldn't get it down to 10.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I think Miles would probably be similar because some of the later ones, like Decoy, You're Under Arrest, Star People, even those ones, like they all have
They're the
their
ones I've never
value.
heard. Yeah.
Those ones have like John Scofield or Mike Stern on guitar.
Well, John Scofield plays with them on that Montreal concert from
That's right.
on the
Yeah.
Blue Big 7, and his playing is incredible. Like I've been looking up John Scofield trying to figure out what albums of his to buy now.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the thing with Miles is that there's so many live recordings, and a lot of what I have here is this is something I was going to, let's see. This was kind of a turning point for me. I think I'm not sure what year this was. Like in the mid 90s, they put out these 5 live 2 CD sets of Miles. So at the Fillmore, which I never had before, Black Beauty, which is also, I think that's Fillmore East. Just one called In Concert. That's at the Philharmonic in New York. Dark Magus. This is a personal favorite of mine. This is like a real heavy.
I'm aware of it, but I've never heard that.
And then Live Evil.
I had that on a Super Audio CD, and I can't find it. I can't believe I don't have it. I don't even know what happened to it.
So these were all. This is one of those killer Miles shots where you got Dave Liebman on sax, Pete Cozy on guitar, Miles just leaning into his trumpet, and Badal Roy is a tabla player who's playing with him for a little while. So this one is just a full-on freak out.
That would be cool.
It's like 2 discs, and each disc.
And which one? Can you show that again? That's
Dark Magus.
Dark Magus. I'm making notes.
That's like wild electric. Pete Cozy on guitar is phenomenal. Possibly the greatest guitar player that ever played with Miles.
Really?
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Wow. All right. That sounds good. I just want to catch up here, keep the people updated. Didn't know half those box sets even existed. Yeah, it's very impressive. I really love all the Gil Evans records, especially Quiet Nights and obviously Sketches. Yeah, Sketches. I'm not sure about Quiet Nights, but Sketches is. I can't comment on the other one. There's so much Gil Evans out there, hard to know where to start. In terms of Miles, there's a lot of Gil Evans out there. I know.
I think they did 4 albums together.
Yeah. Are you a
but
fan?
I mean that one box set would have everything.
Mm-hmm.
This is so this is everything that they did together.
Now, they're always orchestrated?
Yeah.
Gil?
Yeah. Well, he's the arranger and orchestra leader.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be confused with Bill Evans, the piano player.
No.
I would say, Miles' career was so long that throughout his whole history, he actually had 2 different guys in his band named Bill Evans. Because later in the late 80s, he had a saxophone player by the same name. So that's how long Miles was in the business. He started like going through names a second time. If he had lived,
you ever see him?
I had tickets. Massey Hall, June 14th, 1991. And I was a pretty young guy at the time. I think I was just in college, or maybe my first or second year of college, and it was kind of going to be my first big jazz concert by myself. Like my dad had taken me to some stuff. In 1982, he took me to see James Blood Ulmer, and then I think in 83 or 84 we saw the Art Ensemble of Chicago. But going to Miles, this was like a really big deal, and I was going with this friend of mine, and she was excited, and we're walking towards Massey Hall, and I see just all these mostly older people standing around the front of the building, and I'm thinking, oh wow, this is what jazz people do. They're all standing outside talking about how great the show's going to be, and I'm going to mingle with some of these, older black jazz fans, and then as we got closer, we saw signs on the door saying that show was canceled due to illness.
Oh no!
And so this show was going to be rescheduled. So, like I said, that was June 14th, 91, and he passed away in September of that year.
Oh.
So, if I was smarter, then I would have at least taken those tickets to somewhere where I could photocopy them, so I would just have a little souvenir of them or something. I guess I got a refund for them.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I came real close to seeing Miles.
A friend of mine saw him at Roy Thompson Hall back at the same time with is that Montreal show in '83 or '84 where you had John Scofield and that in the band. He said it was just incredible. Yeah.
Well, and like Dylan, Miles' live shows can often split people. People who go and they're expecting to hear the Sketches of Spain, some nice ballads, and then he comes out with electric guitars and keyboards and drum machines, and he's not doing that kind of music anymore. When I was in university, I had a history of jazz professor who he had gone to see Miles like a few years earlier, and of course I was like, oh my God, what was it like? What was? And he told me he walked out after like 20 minutes or something because Miles was not doing what he thought Miles should be doing.
Really? He's all funked up.
Yeah. So, those unrealistic expectations are something that a lot of people still have to this day when they go to Bob Dylan concerts. And they were having with Miles all the way to the end. Miles famously would often play with his back to the audience, which people thought was rude and stuff. And Miles' response would be, how am I supposed to conduct? Because he's kind of leading the band. And so I never got to see him, but I came close.
Wow, that's a shame. Well, a shame that he passed away.
Maybe that's why I'm so obsessive with collecting, especially live recordings of Miles, because I got so close to seeing him live.
Oh
and
man,
I didn't get to.
That's awful. No, just Gil Evans in general. This guy Richard was talking about.
Yeah, check out Gil Evans does. He did a full orchestra version of Hendrix songs.
Really?
Yeah, I think he does. It's like Crosstown Traffic or something with a full orchestra. It's fantastic. It's on Impulse, and I think it's on the album called Out of the Cool. I might have that wrong, but
my second note of the night. Wow, that would be really interesting to hear.
It's great. It's great.
Well, here's somebody kind of just jumping in, I guess. Sound Lab Studios. Heard Miles Kind of Blue this year. Definitely need to hear more Miles. That's awesome.
I would say if you like Kind of Blue, Milestones is one of the ones that's most similar to it.
Yeah, I would suggest that too. I agree. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
So here's a neat box set. This came out in 2002, and I was working in Sacramento at the time, Tower Records. So as soon as I saw it, I grabbed it immediately. It's the complete Miles Davis at Montreux Jazz Festival.
Oh, wow.
20 CDs.
No way.
So
that's over the years when he played at Monterey, or just
73 to 91.
Wow.
So like in 84, there's an afternoon and an evening show. John Scofield, 85 is also John, 86, 88, 89, 90, 91. It starts with 73 with Pete Cozy on guitar. So yeah, 20 CDs of
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it comes with a good booklet where it kind of talks a little bit about what each band was like at the time.
And you really would get a stark contrast of styles from as he was moving in different directions, right?
Yeah, and you see as the band changes, each member kind of, what they add. So the follow-up, I guess, kind of to that. So it's 20 CDs. So they, I don't know what year on this one, 2011, a DVD version of the same box.
Oh, wow.
Now they didn't record or they didn't film as many shows as they recorded audio. So this is only 10 discs. It's like 10 DVDs. Yeah. So from
Wow.
1970. So it's like everything in here
On video.
No, not quite everything. There's some stuff that they didn't kind of get, but they got a lot of it. So that's 10 DVDs alone for Miles. And Miles is somebody who I already have quite a few DVDs of him.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Some of these are bootlegs. Live in Poland 83, Vienna 73, Stockholm 73, Berlin, Munich, Montreal, Paris. There's even a disc. This is how my collection goes. So this is a single DVD of Live at Montreux. So it's basically a sampler of this 10 DVD set. So there's nothing on here that's not on this.
Yeah.
There's no reason to have this. So obviously, except I have to have it. Yeah. Well, but the way I justify it is that if I don't want to watch 10 discs of 10 different shows, this is just kind of a nice like greatest hits where it's like one song from each of those shows. So it might be more something I have on in the background and just kind of let play while it's, while I'm writing or something.
Would you consider yourself a completist with an artist like Miles? I mean, maybe you don't have everything, but you would like to. Is that?
Yeah, kind of close. I mean, I do. Yeah, kind of. If I see something that I don't have, like if they put out anything new from the archives, I'm gonna get it.
Mm-hmm.
I recently got an original CD of Sketches of Spain, which I think is from like '97 or maybe it's earlier. I don't remember. But I have the more recent one, which had like 3 bonus tracks, and then there was an even more recent one that was 2 discs as a deluxe edition with a whole bunch of bonus songs. But when I had a chance to get the original CD of it, I kind of like to have that kind of stuff. Sometimes the mastering's a little different.
Yeah.
Sometimes even just the liner notes are kind of different.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not opposed to like double and triple dipping. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy. I'm just going to Douglas. I have Miles Davis Volume 1 and 2 on CD 2001 on Blue Note, 1952, 54, and 53 in New York. What kind of blue we need to do? Birth of the Cool is on my radar. Are all these official releases that you're showing us?
Everything.
The CDs.
All the CDs. Those are all official releases. I do have quite a few Miles bootlegs. I'm only going to show one, but some of the DVDs that I was holding up are kind of gray market, European releases, because a lot of the stuff in Europe would be broadcast on radio and even filmed for TV. So the rights over there are a little bit different than in North America, and that's where they're getting some of these like official bootleg. Like this is an official Miles Davis release, but a lot of these recordings, Paris 1960, Denmark 1960, these have existed before on kind of gray market releases, and by that I mean items that aren't maybe official in North America, but they just have different kind of copyright laws over there in terms of radio broadcasts and TV shows.
That's when I showed you that thing earlier, because I just picked this up the other day because I noticed it has 8 albums on it, and I only owned 3 of the albums. So there was 5 albums I got here, and I paid like $20 for it or something. It's Miles Davis, and it's kind of an unauthorized European thing. It says right on it, all rights of the producer and owner of the work are reserved, unauthorized copying. I don't know, something that's weird. But anyway, it's got like 8 albums on it, but they're not each CD isn't an album. It's on 4 discs, so one album just follows the next on the disc. but gave me a chance to get some of the albums I don't have until I can get them.
Like this poll in 1983, it's, you know, probably not official here in North America. This is one of those ones with Bill Evans on soprano and tenor sax, because it's from '83. But yeah, this would have been, you know, recorded live for television, so it's not like it wasn't officially recorded.
Yeah, like a rock class type thing.
Yeah, right, exactly. Miles and his management would have known about it. You know, but they just did that a lot with jazz back then in Europe. You know, whole tours would be filmed for television or for radio. That's where, you know, we're getting all these great Bill Evans releases now from like Norway and Stockholm and Sweden. They're all radio broadcasts that have been sitting in the vaults of these European radio stations all these years.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. This guy sums it up: wax and relax. I have to have it. What's wrong with us? Mike, fellow Canadian here. Hi, Robert. Do you still listen to Kiss, and do you own all of their albums? I guess he's trying to say.
I do still listen to Kiss. I still consider myself a big Kiss guy. Pretty sure I have all the albums on CD and a few still on vinyl. My first concert ever was, well, technically my first kind of concert that I remember was Kiss on the Love Gun tour. So Cheap Trick were the opening act on that tour. They only had one album out at the time. So that kind of, you know, foreshadows that years later I would write a whole book about Cheap Trick and be one of the only, I was only the second person at that time who's ever written a book about Cheap Trick. So yeah, with Kiss, I go way back, and, you know, there's a kind of a band that I love them and I hate them. If I hear an interview with Paul Stanley, it kind of drives me up the wall, but, you know, still love all that old music, and they've started putting out some live stuff from the archives. I pick all those up for sure.
It's funny how Kiss always seemed to bring along really great opening acts. I mean, Rush was an opening act for Kiss, and
Sure.
It's amazing, eh?
Yeah, a lot of people were first introduced to Cheap Trick on that tour just because the Love Gun tour was so it was so extensive, and that was like a coast to coast Canadian tour that they did, and Cheap Trick were there like every night. So I meet online more and more people who tell me that the first time they saw Cheap Trick or even heard of Cheap Trick were when they were opening for Kiss. So that definitely was a big showcase for that band.
Ethan says, I can never be a completist for any artist with that many official releases. Yeah, it's hard, man. I try it with Zap. I think there's 128 now official releases, and I think I got 70 something of them. Like, it's just, but I keep trying. But
well, I was lucky because I started collecting Miles, you know, like when he was still alive. So there weren't quite that many at that time, you know. So it was easy to get the main kind of components of the collection, and then slowly, or maybe not so slowly, they keep putting out these archival things. Like I said, those 5 live albums, like a couple of these had never been out in North America. So all of a sudden they put out all 5. I'm working at Tower Records. I'm a young guy, single, living in Toronto. You know, picking up 2 of these every paycheck wasn't really that big a deal.
Yeah, you're right.
Now I could see for someone like Ethan here, if he's just looking at all this stuff, yeah, it would.
Yeah, it'd be overwhelming to start fresh.
Daunting.
Yeah. Oh, can you imagine? Yeah. Yeah. Even I mean, I have like about 13 titles on CD and about 5 on vinyl, and you know, I mean, you have 100. I'm just going, man. It's still, that was my New Year's resolution this year is to do a Miles Davis deep dive. This year that's it. So I think that's going to consume me all year.
Well, there's lots to discover.
Oh, Kiss, the jazz of rock bands. Yeah, my friend Larry, who's watching, the Canadian Stud Muffin, wanted me to ask you, what's your 3 favorite Miles Davis albums?
Probably I might stick with Milestones for the early period. I would have to pick On the Corner for the electric period. And then, you know, like it's hard not to say Kind of Blue and Bitches Brew, but everyone kind of says those. So I
Well,
like
there's
to.
a reason they say it.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
But for a third one, I don't know. I like for the later period. I like Decoy a lot. I might pick Decoy, but I could easily, I could easily go with Sketches of Spain. Could easily go with Bitches Brew or Jack Johnson. Feed to Kilimanjaro.
See, Larry, we were talking about he lent me Kilimanjaro just the other day. I haven't played it yet, but I've never heard that.
Oh, it's fantastic.
CD
Yeah.
too. Yeah. Um, how about the Prestige period before he signed with Columbia? There's some pretty cool stuff on there too. Like I was listening to the album Relaxin', and there's a song Walkin' on there that just blows my mind. It's one of my absolute favorite Miles Davis songs.
Yeah, I have a complete Prestige box set because I think he did 4 albums or 5 albums with them, but then there's also some sessions left over. So I do have a box set of all the Prestige stuff, and that stuff's really good for that early period because what happened, he was signed to Prestige, then he signed to Columbia, and he recorded the Round About Midnight album, but Prestige still had some stuff in the can. So for a while there, they were both putting out Miles Davis kind of product, while Prestige got rid of all their stuff and he was starting this new kind of career with Columbia. But the Prestige stuff is just as good. It's the same guys he was playing with and the same like intensity.
Yeah, there's some great gems in those albums for sure. That's amazing. I got into Miles in 1990, was a huge fan, and heartbroken in late 81. Was weird that I discovered him just before he died. Yeah. Wow.
So this is a neat this is a 4 CD set of just his Miles Davis 5 CDs, his Warner Brothers era, which is not necessarily always thought of as his greatest kind of era. Albums like Tutu and Amandla. This is where the sound, at least in the studio, sounds very commercial. A lot of 80s sounding plastic kind of keyboards and drum machines and stuff. I still like a lot of it. So 4 discs that kind of cover all the studio albums from that time, and then the 5th disc is a bunch of rarities. So stuff when he was just playing on other people's albums from that era. Because he was signed to Warner Brothers, they had him doing sessions with other Warner Brothers artists.
Oh, really?
And this was originally, when did this come out? 2011. So this was first supposed to come out in 2001 as, I think it was an 8 CD set, and it was supposed to include some of the tracks that he had worked on with Prince. And at the last minute, there was like some copyright dispute or something, and it never came out. I knew a guy who had written the liner notes for it, and the Miles family had a problem with that, and they just canceled the whole thing. So then 10 years later, they put it out as 5 discs. And of course, it is missing any of the Prince tracks, unfortunately.
Really? Have the tracks he did with Prince ever been released?
I think now they're on. One of the tracks is on one of the Prince box sets. Is the song called "Can I Play with You," and that is on the. I guess that's on Prince's Sign of the Times box set. They finally put it out, but I guess they didn't, because Prince was, of course, famously fighting with Warner Brothers a lot in the late 80s and early 90s. So I think that was part of the problem. He didn't want to just give a track to a Warner Brothers box set, even though it was Miles and he was a huge fan and friend of Miles. So it just got too messy. So you kind of had to wait for both these guys to die before it could come out. Record company stuff is like that sometimes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I'm sure you can. I mean, I had it on crappy sounding cassettes for years. The song "Can I Play with You," and it's pretty much a Prince song with then Miles just like soloing furiously over the whole thing, and it's very upbeat.
You can tell Miles is there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
The other thing they did was Miles. Let me think. How did this go? Prince played a New Year's Eve concert in 1987 at his Paisley Park Studios, and Miles joins him for the encores. You can see that on YouTube, and that's out in, I think that's in the Prince Sign of the Times box set as well, the DVD of that. So that's it's pretty short, but it's a little bit of footage of Miles and Prince on stage together.
That's pretty interesting. The other one was, if anybody's read Miles' autobiography, he talks about a lot about getting friendly with Jimi Hendrix and the plans to make music together. And there's stories of Jimmy kind of hanging out at Miles's house, and Miles is out playing at a club, and he leaves Jimmy with some sheet music for some stuff he'd like to do with them. Comes back home after the club expecting Jimmy to have this done. Jimmy can't read music, and he's
That's
just
right.
like, yeah. And it's like, no. So then they kind of start jamming it out. You know, he's got to show him rather than let him learn it himself. And it's that would have been. Can you imagine if those two would have?
Yeah, there's definitely no footage or even bootlegs out there of Miles and Hendrix together. Every once in a while, someone says that they've heard it, or that's, a friend of a friend has it, and I don't know if that really exists. But the story that you just told is pretty much true. I think Miles was actually in the studio that night, but yeah, he did leave tablature for Jimmy to look at, and Jimmy couldn't read. So
Yeah, what a shame. Can you imagine? In your guys' opinion, is Miles the greatest jazz man of all time? Then sounds like that might be a dumb question. If not, who? I don't think that's a dumb question, because I think a lot of people would argue Coltrane, maybe, or I mean, Dizzy Gillespie. There's a lot who.
Well, I would say that some people, I mean, he's definitely at top of my list, but some people consider Miles' greatest talent isn't so much his trumpet playing. Technically, there are better trumpet players than him, quite a few actually. But his greatest talent to some people is how he would bring in new people. So he was constantly evolving. Like I said before, people with like unrealistic expectations that he's always going to be doing the same thing, whereas actually, he's always bringing in younger people. When Tony Williams was drumming for him, I think Williams was like 19 years old or something, but to Miles, he was like the firecracker that really lit that band. That was, of course, was the Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, Wayne Shorter group. So Miles is always looking for new material. He's always looking for younger people to play with, and because Miles is constantly evolving, and not all jazz guys have that. A lot of jazz guys, they do their thing really well, but that's just what they do, and that's fine. There's a famous story of in the early 70s, I guess, some fan sees Miles on the streets of New York, and the guy goes up to him and says, "Miles, you're my man. I love you, but I just can't get with that new stuff you're doing." And Miles says, "I should wait for you." Like Miles is he's gonna keep going forward. So when Miles is always bringing in new people, Miles was one of the first kind of jazz guys to, like in electric jazz, like when he had the Bitches Brew group, that he brought in like a South American percussionist in the band. So the whole group is American, and he would often have black and white musicians. He didn't really see that as an issue, but he brings in this South American percussionist in the band, and after that, everyone has a South American percussionist in the band, right? Weather Report and all of these, groups like that. So Miles is kind of known, I think, more of being a leader,
trailblazer,
and bringing, when you look at the main people in the Bitches Brew era. So Herbie Hancock, he goes off to form Headhunters.
Mm-hmm.
Wayne Shorter, he goes off to form Weather Report. Who else did we have in there? John McLaughlin goes off for Mahavishnu Orchestra. Chick Corea goes off to form Return to Forever. So almost every big 70s fusion band came from Miles.
Mm-hmm.
So Miles is sort of like the grandfather almost of
I never thought about that.
Of that whole scene.
They're all such important bands too. They're not.
Yeah, right. And they all have a main guy who came from Miles. Mm-hmm. In some cases, two who came from Miles.
Yeah.
And then even in the later period where he's again playing with younger guys, You know, like Miles is always the oldest guy on his stage, and he always gets way younger people because that inspires him. And then they go off and they all form their own bands and they all go on to have these own careers. So he could be the most important jazz guy in history, because without him, you almost don't have any more. All these groups don't exist.
Yeah, that's true. I saw a Marcus Miller band at the Montreal Jazz Festival one year, and Marcus played bass for him, I think.
For a long time.
In the 80s, right?
Yeah, Marcus wrote a lot of the material on when Miles signed to Warner Brothers. When I was showing that Warner Brothers box set before, when Miles signed to Warner Brothers, he got a really good advance deal, but he had to sign away all of his songwriting royalties, which I don't know why he would do that anyway.
Yeah, you would think. I mean,
he was pissed off at Columbia, even though he'd been at Columbia for like 40 years or something, but he was pissed off at them. So he signs with Warner Brothers, but because he wasn't going to earn any songwriting royalties, he had Marcus Miller write those albums. So every song on Amandla and Tutu, those are almost like Marcus Miller solo albums.
Wow.
With Miles as the primary soloist. So yeah, Marcus Miller, he's a real important part of the Miles story for sure.
Yeah, he was great. I had never heard the name before until I saw him. I saw him open for Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, actually. No, the Bela Fleck opened for Marcus Miller, sorry. Prestige record, Relaxin', with had If I Were a Bell, which was the very ending of a Cosby show. I know, yeah. I mean, I don't think we like to talk about Bill Cosby, but yeah, he certainly was a jazz fan, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cannot say I'm the biggest jazz fan besides maybe jazz fusion, but a couple of Miles Davis albums I have heard are pretty good. Yeah.
There's a rave review. Some of them are pretty good.
Yeah. Keep digging, Ethan. Keep digging, man.
Check out On the Corner.
Yeah.
On the Corner.
Thing is, I always loved the jazz series that Ken Burns did. There was when they were talking about Miles, I think it was Wynton Marsalis made a comment about I guess it was about jazz in general, but he said that, you know, it's a music that you have to go to. Jazz isn't going to come to you. You're not going to hear it on the radio and go, oh yeah, that's a nice, you know, it's not She Loves You. And you really got to make a concerted effort to listen and try and understand it, research it. It's a totally different type of music than anything else, I think, in that regard.
Well, and when you get into it, you know, I tell a lot of young people who at my store who start talking about jazz, like once you get into it, it's such its own world.
Yeah.
That it really kind of opens up even than the way that you will go back and look at pop music and look at rock and roll music. Because jazz is really its own, it's just like this huge universe, and it's totally its own self-sustainable thing, without any of that. So to get into it, you're in for a trip, and you're going to be there for a while, but there's lots and lots of just great stuff. You know, you don't have to have a Miles collection the size of mine. You know, most people probably don't need a Miles collection the size of mine. My wife might say that I don't need a Miles collection the size of mine. No, yeah, she's down. But
is your wife a jazz fan?
Well, she likes a lot of the stuff that I play for her. She got into Pharoah Saunders through me years ago, but you know, she's mostly like more of a '90s kind of R&B. And well, you've met her many times, actually.
What else you got?
So
buddy, keep rolling. This is fun.
So I think you have this on vinyl. This is a new.
Yes. That was a record store release, right?
Yeah. And now it's a regular release. You can just get it normally on CD and vinyl. So this is really great because it's only a couple of days after he did play Montreux Jazz Festival, right around the time of this. But the Montreux performance, he's not really in good shape. He's kind of cracking a lot of notes. It's just not Miles at his best, for sure. However, on this one,
just after he canceled your show, 2 weeks after.
July
July 14th.
Yeah, so June 14th was my show. This is July 1st.
Yeah.
So he did do other shows after the Toronto one got canceled. Son of a.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is great. And for a later period, I mean, this is only just a couple months before he passes away. It's very, very good. And like I say, it's way better than his Montreux appearance, which was like the same week of this, I think. So they're still finding good stuff in the vaults, which is really encouraging.
Yeah. Now, when you look at an album like this and you see the lineup of artists who are playing with them, which I don't recognize any of them, or any of these guys go on to have successful jazz careers that would be of note.
Like
Kenny Garrett on saxophone, Deron Johnson on keyboard, guy named Foley on bass, or lead bass.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Players.
Yeah, Foley plays like, I think he plays like a 6-string or an 8-string bass, but it's kind of cool. It's tuned a little higher. So he is playing basically guitar solos on it.
Yeah.
I don't know what he does anymore, but Kenny Garrett still plays, and he puts out albums all the time. He put out a great album. I think it was called Music of My Ancestors that just came out a year or two ago. He's a guy to watch. He's a great tenor and soprano sax player. And I think actually he's got a newer album that I don't even have. I think he put out something with like one of the guys in the Roots or something. I have to look into that. But yeah, Kenny Garrett is he'd be the main guy out of this band who went on to do other things.
The other one that was a Record Store Day release, and I'm not sure if it's hard to find now or not, but I'm glad I bought it because it's the Complete Bitches Brew. These are double imaged. They're just outtakes or something from the Complete Bitches Brew sessions.
Right.
This is an excellent album. Fantastic. I think I like it more than Bitches Brew actually. For a listen, it's really
so those tracks are in the Complete Bitches Brew box set that I showed you.
Yeah.
But that's the first time that just those would be out on vinyl, and yeah, a lot of the alternate takes from Miles' studio stuff are more than worthwhile checking out.
Yeah. Can I ask you about Kind of Blue? There are so many different. How many times has that album been reissued? And is there one that people should gravitate to? You just go, this is the grail of Kind of Blue albums?
Yeah, well, actually I have a bit of a. Maybe I should grab them. Give me 1 second.
Thanks everyone for being on with us tonight. It's great. We really appreciate your questions and oh, Jack the music guy's here with us. Jack, the young guy from Kansas City, I believe, and he's just a huge music fan and really has a great taste in music. He's a very cool dude. Just heard a song off that jazz album that you, Glenn, have. That's a black and white cover of a guy from 2015. I think I heard it on the radio. Maybe the Jack Johnson. That cover, Jack. John O'Brien. One of my favorite Miles albums records is Sketches of Spain and Milestone. Yeah, we've talked about both those being great albums.
Great records.
I also love Bitches Brew by Miles. Yeah. Awesome. Any thoughts on 80s stuff like Man with a Horn, Decoy, and Aura? Digital Underground samples Fat Time off Man with a Horn on a track called Nuttin' This Funky.
I definitely don't know the Digital Underground song, but yeah, Man with the Horn, that's I think that's one of his that's like early 80s. Decoy, I mentioned, I like that one a lot. Aura, I just did a video recently. It was the anniversary of the first. He did the special concert. Miles was invited like to Sweden or Denmark, Copenhagen. He was invited to Copenhagen to play in this special show where this Danish musician had written a piece of music based on like Miles' auras, and each letter of Miles' name was given a different color, and I don't know, kind of new agey stuff. But so Miles flew to Copenhagen and performed this piece live with these guys, and then he came back, I think 2 weeks later. They recorded it in the studio, and that's an album called Aura. Columbia didn't want to release it. That was part of the reason. That was one of the things he had a problem with Columbia when he signed to Warner Brothers instead. So he wanted a digital remix, and they wouldn't pay for it, and it was a big problem. So it sat in the vaults for a little while. I think it only came out the year after he passed away. But Aura is really good. I mean, he didn't write any of the stuff on it, but it is him with an orchestra, with like a large piece group, and very, very good. Decoy and Man with the Horn are more kind of that funk pop sound that he was doing. I like those records a lot. They're fun. They're, you know, kind of more lighthearted, I guess. But yeah, I like them a lot.
Yeah, I mean, when Miles is funky, he's funky. It's fun. It is fun.
So Kind of Blue. Here's a weird thing with Kind of Blue. The first CD version of it that they put out, they changed the cover to it. And Kind of Blue always had this, you know, this real close up of Miles playing. And the very first CD, they changed the cover. So I hated it that the cover was changed. You know, I mean, your version of Milestones that you keep holding up, that has a different cover than the original.
Yeah, it does.
I don't know why they do things like that, but so the two main Kind of Blues to look out for. This is a dual disc, and this has one bonus track. It's a two-sided. You know, they're doing these things for a while where one side is CD and the other side is DVD. So it won't play in a lot of players because the disc is just a
DVD
little
audio.
thicker. No, the DVD. Well, yeah, it's got the album in 5.1 surround, but also has a documentary about the making of the band.
Oh, okay. So
really, the one to get is Kind of Blue. This is the 50th anniversary. I guess
is that the legacy? Is it like a legacy edition one?
Yeah, it's 2 CDs on Sony Legacy. So it's got a whole bunch of alternate takes on disc 1, and then disc 2 is more outtakes. But so those are kind of like my two go-tos. But then
now, is that a stereo? The legacy edition, is that in stereo or mono or?
I think this is just an original stereo, but it doesn't have the 5.1 surround mix that this one does. Now I do have a super audio of Kind of Blue. This will only play in super audio players, which I don't have one, so this is just ornamental. It's just something to have. But you know, as I was picking up all of these different Kind of Blues, the one that they changed the cover to that I hated, that I got rid of when I started upgrading, I kind of wanted it again. Just like
just because it's it's,
you know, when somebody asks if I'm a
bastard child of Kind of Blue.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh man, that weird one. Why did I ever give that away? And then a few years ago, my mother-in-law said, "Oh, I have some CDs. I'm gonna throw out, or I'll give them to you if you want them." You know, and I'm thinking, well, what are the odds there's going to be anything in there that I want? She said, well, there's one Miles Davis in there. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I've got like so many Miles. It was the one with the.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was the one with the wrong cover. So my mother-in-law really came through because I did want to replace that in my collection. So technically,
that's funny. That's I
have like 4 different versions of Kind of Blue now.
Yeah, that's those Columbia Jazz masterpiece ones, right? Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. And do you have Kind of Blue on vinyl as well, I'm assuming?
I do. Yeah. I think I have the one somebody it was like an anniversary version that came out a few years ago. A guy bought it from my store, and I still know who he is. He still comes in the store sometimes. And he said he was thinking of buying it, but he didn't know anything about Miles, and he figured he should try him. And I said, well, if you don't know anything about Miles, you know, maybe you shouldn't be getting a $50 album for your first. Yeah. And he said, no, I'm open to it. I'm open to it. So of course he brought it back the next day and said that it skipped. And
Yeah, sure it does.
so I bought it and I have it here, and yeah, it doesn't skip.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But these, actually, you mentioned, so these Columbia Jazz masterpieces, you can always tell them because they have the border around them, and they always have this symbol in
Yeah.
the corner. So those are what a lot of the original jazz CDs on Columbia. That's how they came out, and some of them are kind of good to have now. Like I said, the liner notes could be a little bit different. That was the Sketches of Spain that I just picked up recently, even though I've got, right. So I just got that version of it, even though I have the two later versions with
That's the only version I have.
bonus tracks, and
Yeah.
there's a 2-disc deluxe edition of that on Sony Legacy that's worth getting. But sometimes these earlier ones, I like to have them on
And
hand.
it does have a good book in it with lots of
Sure.
lots of writing and lots of storytelling. Yeah, that's interesting. How about some of the single live stuff? Like, well, I've got one of those Columbia Jazz Masterpiece one live at the Blackhawk.
Yeah, there's actually a box set of that. There's a complete live at the Blackhawk that I have that I think is 4 discs. Yeah, I think I have the 4-disc of that.
And live at the Plug Nickel.
I have that, but there is also, I think it's like a 9 or 11 disc complete Plug Nickel, which I have over there.
That's great, and it's got Walking on it, which is it. And If I Were a Bell. I mean, this is a lot of the stuff from.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of that early.
Lawson.
Yeah, he would do stuff off the Prestige albums, even though he was signed to Columbia at that point.
Wow, I'm going to leave that out, actually. I haven't listened to that for a long time. That's excellent. How do you feel about Birth of the Cool? Do you find that an accessible album? Like, this is definitely not. When I first heard this, I couldn't get into it. To me, it was like the first time I heard Coltrane. It was just way above my musical ears.
I used to play it a lot when I was in university when I first got that one. Yeah, it's a little different. Some people aren't quite expecting it to, it is a big band, and some of the music can be, they're like larger pieces for sure. But, it's one of the cornerstones.
Oh, absolutely. And this is the complete Birth of the Cool with, I don't know how many tracks on it.
Yeah, it's got a lot.
Yeah, like 25 tracks on one CD.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, the Legacy Edition. You showed the Legacy Edition for Kind of Blue, but there's also the Bitches Brew one, which I quite like.
Yeah, I have that too.
That has Copenhagen Live.
Yeah.
From, I can't tell the year because I don't have my glasses on, but 2 CD set.
Yeah.
Wow. What else you got for us?
I think my final thing for the night, this is a real important, this is a bootleg, no doubt about it. And this is a 2-disc set called Time After Time. And it's a compilation of songs recorded live on the 1989 tour. So a lot of the stuff that has come out on other DVDs and box sets, it's that kind of era, because he's doing Time After Time. He's doing.
Which is a beautiful song. Cyndi Lauper wrote a great song.
Yeah, he does great. I think that was a cover, actually. I don't think she wrote it.
Wasn't she not the original writer of that song?
Yeah, I think it might be the guys from the Hooters.
Oh,
that.
Interesting.
But there's a song called Perfect Way by Scritti Politti. Miles was also playing that a lot around this time. And then, some of the originals like Full Nelson and Hannibal, Intruder, Star People. It's just a great, great set. This belonged to a friend of mine, named a very, very good friend I've known for many years, named Mark Trump. And he knew I coveted this CD. And every time I would go to his place, I would just look at it and go, oh, man. And finally, one day it showed up in the mail. He just gave it to me. He just,
oh, wow.
I guess didn't want to listen to me moaning about it all the time.
Is that out of print?
Yeah, for sure. It's like one of those European releases again that was probably okay to get over there. But there's lots of stuff from that era. There's lots of stuff from almost every Miles era, actually.
That's
You know,
that's the one thing. If you want to build a Miles collection, you can go to a used CD store, and there's usually a pretty good selection.
yeah,
Like if you look around, you'll find enough titles to build a nice collection.
yeah. There's a great place in Toronto called Pandemonium Books, and they always have at least like 15 Miles CDs. You know, and they're all ones that I already have, so I don't need them. But I still look through it every time I'm there just to kind of see, because they're getting these things from somewhere.
Yeah. Where is that store?
It's on Dundas and Keele. It's an area called
Neil.
the
Oh.
it's an area called the Junction.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a great. They have vinyl, they have CDs. They also
I'm not
sell.
familiar with that store.
They've been around for like a long time, and and use books as well.
Yeah.
So I've been studying Buddhism for 2 or 3 years now. So every time I go there, I get 2 books out of the Eastern spirituality section. I get a couple of jazz CDs, and they have a lot of music books, actually, like a huge collection of.
Biographies.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I've read 2 books on Miles. One, his biography, his autobiography is great, and it's written just the way he spoke. I mean, he had a bit of a foul mouth, and every other word is like a mother effer. I think that was his favorite word.
I'm sure he didn't actually write that book. I think he was
Well, I'm
just
sure he had a ghostwriter, but
he was like interviewed for
but
hours and hours, and they just transcribed it.
his personality comes shining through, I think.
Yeah, the book it is a lot of fun. I've read it many times. He does talk more kind of about the stories and like the character and so than he does about the actual music.
Yeah.
Which when I first got it, I really wanted to learn a lot about his music, and you don't get that much of that in there. But there's lots of other great books about his music. I have 2 separate books just about his electric period.
Really?
Like purely just about like Bitches Brew to Aura kind of.
Wow, I need to dig more into some
Both of
books.
them are really in depth. They're great books.
Yeah, I definitely need to do that. What did you think of the movie they made, Miles Ahead, with Gene?
Oh, the Don Cheadle movie?
Playing Miles.
Yeah, my TV was covered in spit.
Not good.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good. There, Miles is such an interesting character, and yeah, if you read his book or you just read some of the stories about him, he lived this crazy, crazy life. With lots of drama and lots of heartbreak and lots of, threats of violence and arguments and all kinds of craziness. And then you make a movie about his life, and at least half of it is fictional. They just made up so much stuff in that movie that I just can't. I really have a hard time getting on board with that. And part of that is, I guess, part of my Buddhist beliefs that there is one universal truth, and something is either true or it's not. And so if you put in a movie that Miles steals the tapes of his unreleased album and the cops are chasing him and shooting him like it's a car chase scene, and like none of that. Why would they chase him in a car for stealing his own tape? And then there's a younger guy in the movie who represents Wynton Marsalis, because they have a guy from the record company say to Miles, you should call him and wish him a happy birthday. And that did happen. That is real. That happened with Wynton Marsalis. Miles didn't want to do it. But then they show the guy playing, and he's playing kind of like on the corner electric music, which is totally 100% different than what Wynton Marsalis ever played. Wynton Marsalis has always been a total purist, and him and Miles often didn't get along because Miles is going forward, and Wynton thought he was kind of selling out because he's playing kind of his version of rock music. And he's, to hardcore Miles or jazz guys, Miles going electric, that's like Dylan going to electric.
Yeah.
You're pandering to like pop music people. You're not a serious jazz person or a serious folk person in the Dylan sense. So they take the truth thing about Miles not wanting to wish the younger kind of guy a happy birthday. But then the guy's music was like, who's that guy? Like, there's no way that was Wynton Marsalis. And, Hollywood does this thing often where, they had to add a white character. Like, it's not exciting enough to have Miles Davis. They make up this white character who's a Rolling Stone reporter, and like we're seeing it all kind of through his eyes or something. Just terrible. And I was really disappointed that Don Cheadle had been fighting to get that movie made for so many years. He'd always be talking about it and trying to petition studios and raising money from different people. Maybe that means he had to make a lot of compromises.
Yeah, they had to Hollywoodize it.
Maybe, but no, it's terrible. I could not. There's no way I could even sit through it again. Like it's really.
Yeah, I've seen it. You can watch it on one of the streaming services whenever, if anybody's interested in checking it out.
I mean,
how about Birth of the Cool? Did you like Birth of the Cool? The documentary?
Yeah, I think that's here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's good because it allows a lot of the people who were there to kind of,
The problem with those kind of documentaries, I'm the same. They did one on Zappa, and they do like it. They're for someone who's really into that artist. There's so much more. It's almost like baby.
Sure.
It's almost like just a Cole's Notes version of just to get to whet people's appetite. You can't.
Sure.
You'd need to make somebody should make a Miles Davis documentary that's like a Ken Burns, 10 episodes. Or
you could for sure.
Yeah, there's your next book.
There we go. You did it. You fixed it.
Now
we got it.
Gonna grab a few things. Sketches of Spain is best served with some vinyl, snap, crackle, and pop. Yes. Here you go, Robert. Mike, I enjoyed Nazareth, Cheap Trick, and Guess Who books. Thanks for signing them. Next, Stephen Van Zandt.
Right. Well, the Van Zandt book is available.
That's awesome. Mike, are you in the Toronto area? Do you know this guy? Did he come to the store? And
is that I don't recognize the picture, but that could be a guy out in Western Canada that I think I know, or a Winnipeg guy.
I agree. I do not mind Snapple Cracks and Vinyl. Gives it atmosphere. Oh, this is my buddy Steve. Clickbait. I thought this was going to be a live interview with Miles Davis. Well, I don't know why. Yeah, Steve hates jazz, so this is
I didn't bring my Ouija board.
Although Tommy Bolin made an album with Billy Cobham, so come on, Steve. That's not Miles Davis. I could not tell. I'm in Coquitlam, BC.
Oh,
you must have shipped some books out, signed books out to him. That's awesome. Yeah, Mike, grab the Stephen Van Zandt book. It's fantastic. I think it's my favorite one of the 4 so far.
It's definitely the best. We really kicked it up another notch with that one.
It's really good. Yeah.
I'm really happy with it.
Yeah. Wow. What about just I mean, we're exhausting Miles a little bit here. I mean, we could go on forever talking about it. What about just other jazz artists that anybody who's watching who's kind of just going, I'd really like to dip my toe into this? Or artists that you suggest?
Well, John Coltrane has one of my favorite Coltrane albums of all time, which doesn't get talked about quite as much as like Love Supreme. Of course, that's his masterpiece. But there's an album just before that one called Crescent. And that is a 10 out of 10. I mean, that is a great introduction. I push that when it's available. I push that in my store all the time.
Wow, interesting. No, another one.
It's on Impulse, and like I said, it's the one just before Love Supreme. So it's similar in tone to Love Supreme, but it's phenomenal. So that's a good starting point. It really kind of depends what kind of jazz people, I guess, are most interested.
Well, it is. Are you into like an Oscar Peterson type, piano trio, or like jazz guitar, like a Grant Green, or
I have a lot of Oscar. When they put his picture on the $2 coin a couple of years ago, I was just going to, I work in a retail store. So when I would go to the bank to get a roll of toonies, I would crack it open and look through them all to see if there was any Oscar Peterson toonies. So I think I ended up getting, I have 5 or 6 of them.
Oh, wow.
That's so yeah, I love Oscar. Oscar's in my top 5 piano players list.
Yeah,
for sure.
Amazing. my daughter was going out with a guy who worked in years ago, and Oscar was still with us, going out with a guy who worked in a store that rented photography equipment. And Oscar's big hobby was photography, and he would come in the store and rent equipment to do whatever he wanted to do. And he told me, yeah, Oscar's in quite often. I go, oh man, can I give you? I gave him my Night Train CD. I said, next time he comes in, can you get him to sign it for me? So I have an autographed Oscar Peterson CD.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's a kind of a prized position. It's actually framed on my wall, or I'd show it to you.
There's a statue of Oscar in Ottawa, and it's
Really?
him sitting at a piano bench.
Wow.
And you can actually like go right up next to him and stuff. It's really great.
It's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
It's very, very cool.
Wow. Yeah, he's one of Canada's greatest. There's no doubt.
But for guitar guys, yeah, I like Grant Green a lot. I have a lot of Pat Metheny. You know, again, like I was saying earlier, it's a whole world there. So if someone's interested in acoustic jazz, or they're more interested in electric jazz, that would help determine which kind of path to set them off.
Yeah, I think if you're a rock guy trying to get into jazz, I mean, Grant Green's probably pretty good guy to check out. Also, somebody introduced me to this guy I didn't know until about 3 years ago, was Jimmy Smith.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Jimmy Smith, he's a lot of fun. That's probably a good gateway for some people, because if you're kind of into some R&B and funk stuff, you know, he plays a Hammond B organ, and he's jazz, but he's also very, very funky and very accessible. So that would probably be a good gateway for some people to get into jazz. And he recorded on Verve for like many, many years. And then he had a comeback album. I think he went back to Verve, and it's called Back at the Chicken Coop, or no, maybe that's the earlier one. But he's Jimmy Smith's a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah. And then there's people like who came out of the jazz fusion, like Stanley Clarke has some really albums that are really interesting. Jean-Luc Ponty, even if you like the violin. And
I've got a couple of ones with it's Jean-Luc Ponty, Stanley Clarke, and Chick Corea. I think the three of them did some things together. But yeah, once you get into Mahavishnu Orchestra and Return to Forever, those are their own kind of subcultures themselves, and you can really.
I saw at Toronto Jazz Festival one year. They had a trio of Bela Fleck, Stanley Clarke, and Jean-Luc Ponty played together as a trio. It was amazing.
Sure.
Yeah. There is, like you said, it's just, you could go on and on and on. It's just its own world. It's its own universe. It's not even its own world.
Yeah, but maybe albums like Coltrane's Crescent. What was the one that you just mentioned? The
Jimmy Smith.
Like Oscar Peterson, Night Train. Yeah. Like there are some kind of standalones that we could kind of point to, and Kind of Blue is one of those. You could almost pick like 10 different artists, get the one killer album from each of those guys, and then from there you just expand depending on how much that music connected with you. But I would say Night Train is up there.
Yeah, because I mentioned when we first started talking that I had asked a jazz guy where should I start, and he mentioned Kind of Blue. When I went home, I Googled the 10 greatest jazz albums of all time, and Kind of Blue was there, and another album, and Night Train was there, Oscar Peterson. The big Herbie Hancock album.
Headhunters.
Yeah, Headhunter, and an artist that I wasn't aware of at the time that was Charles Mingus.
Oh, Mingus, yeah.
Is one of the great jazz albums too, and that's pretty accessible, really, because it's pretty funky. And
that was an early one that my dad gave me on CD. An earlier Mingus one when he was with Atlantic, an album called Blues and Roots. And that one is also very, very accessible. Mingus, because he's got some soul influences and even like a little bit of gospel and kind of stuff, he's also very, very accessible. So I would say the Blues and Roots album. There's also an album called The Black Saint and the Sinner Lady.
Yes.
On Impulse.
I have that on CD.
Yeah, those are good ones. And if you want a real trip, read that guy's autobiography. It's crazy.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's out there because it is his true life story, but then he adds this other stuff in where he's kind of a I think he's supposed to be like a secret agent or something, and he's like, so with him, I don't mind that he's playing with the truth because I know he's crazy and it's fun. In the Miles movie, they play with the truth just because they can't, they just want to make it more like Hollywood. The Mingus book, it's called Beneath the Underdog.
What's it called?
Beneath the Underdog.
Wow. Okay, I'm looking.
Yeah, it's great. It's a crazy, wild read.
That's great. That'd be awesome to read. Wow. Very cool. This has been awesome. What else you listen to these days? Anything exciting coming out new that you've been?
I just recently got this 4 CD set of various artists live at the Montreux Jazz Festival. So I just kind of been checking that out a little bit this week. It was like a series of promo discs or something. I don't even really know what they are, but one's kind of more blues artists and one's a little bit more jazz, and it's got Stevie Ray Vaughan's on it. And so that's kind of the main thing for right now. I am finishing up a little bit of a writing project this month, so kind of devoting a lot of time just to that. And
Anything you can tell us about, or it's top secret?
It's kind of top secret right now, but I'm probably going to be able to announce it at the end of the month.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it is. I'm pretty excited about it. It's not something that probably too many people, at least too many English readers, are going to be interested in, but we'll talk about that later.
Wow. Well, I do want to promote your book one more time before we say goodnight. Robert's new book, Solidarity Forever, The Art and Soul of Stevie Van Zandt. Where can we pick this book up, Robert?
If you're in the Toronto area, we can arrange for a local pickup. I run a record store in Etobicoke, and I live near Bathurst and Eglinton. So sometimes people just come to my apartment building, and I'll meet you in the lobby with a couple of books. But otherwise, Amazon has it. The publisher's website, Friesen Press, you can get it from them. It's really everywhere. It's in the Indigo database in the States. It's in the Barnes and Noble's database, so they can order it in for you. Really, you can get it anywhere, and I ship all over. I'm shipping out 2 or 3 copies tomorrow to some people. If someone wants a signed copy, then I definitely want to get this thing into as many hands as possible because I'm real proud of it. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Stevie is really happy with how it turned out, so I can't do much better than that.
Yeah, it's an awesome book. It really is. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a great read. Fantastic. Look forward to whatever your next project is because you do these books so well. I hope we get number 5 here at some point. Miles Davis sounds like the perfect one.
It would probably have to be a series of books because he's got more albums than anybody else.
Can you imagine? That'd be pretty cool, though. I don't think anybody's ever tackled that, have they?
No, I don't. Not well. There is a book called Milestones, and I think it's written by a British music professor guy, and it's very, very good. But I've owned it for like over 25 or 30 years, so it's going to be way out of date. It's not going to have a lot of this stuff in it.
I'm kind of thinking you do something like that guy who wrote the Big Note, the Zappa book. There, it's kind of, that the Miles, but it's about this thick.
It would have to be
the same thing.
It would have to be, yeah.
Yeah. Here's let's get a couple of questions in here. First, my buddy Steve says he has the Cobham album that I mentioned because Tommy's on it. Same reason I have the Alphonse Mazoun album. I don't know who Alphonse Mazoun is. Is he another jazz guy?
Is that the percussionist?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But I will definitely try to get into jazz more this year. Attaboy, Ethan. Ethan, thanks for always commenting on my stuff. I appreciate it. Can we email you, Robert?
Absolutely. Lawson NCA, so LAWSONINCA @yahoo.com. If you send me your mailing address, which I think I probably already have yours, then I can get you a Canada Post quote and we can get a signed book out to you. No problem.
I will put Robert's email address in the description of the video below. So come back in a bit and you can grab it off there if you didn't get a chance to write it down. A book about the Bare Naked Ladies. I'm a huge fan of the band. There actually is a biography on the Bare Naked Ladies. which actually wasn't a bad book because I'm a Scarborough kid, so I kind of enjoyed reading that just because they were from Scarborough as well. So
didn't Paul Myers write that book?
Yes, yeah. Do you know Paul?
I've tried to get on his podcast a few times, and
yeah,
no, with much luck. But
wow.
I believe there's a Bare Naked Ladies documentary, and I think it's being held up by some kind of copyright stuff behind the scenes or something. Like, I think it's done.
I can imagine it's probably Stephen Page.
Maybe, I don't know.
The rest of the guys, who knows?
But I think the Paul Myers book was done with the participation of the Bare Naked Ladies, so I don't know if there's too much you could add to it, considering he had that access to them.
And plus, Robert doesn't really write biographies per se. You're more of you're telling the story through the music.
Yeah, although
rather than telling a life story where this is who his parents were, and
right. I think with the Stephen book, we lean a little bit more towards biography because I have a little bit of stuff, but I still don't go into like personal drama details and that kind of stuff. No.
Yeah, it's all about the music, which is great. That's why I love it. That's why I love your books. Yeah, excellent. Robert, thank you so much.
Yeah,
this was Robert's idea to do this, so thanks for thinking of it because I thought it was awesome. And if you come up with any more ideas, buddy, let's do them.
Yeah, this could be a regular.
I would love to do it regularly. That's great. I hope I get a chance to come in the city soon and see you.
Yeah, we'll go to Pandemonium.
One of these days, man. I got to come in. Anyway, thanks everyone who watched. And if you didn't get a chance to watch the whole thing, it'll be up for your viewing pleasure later. Check out Robert's book, Solidarity Forever. You have an Instagram page, and easy to find, Sunrise Records. And thanks so much for joining me on this, Robert. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad we did it, Glenn.
Okay, great, man. Everybody have a great night. Thanks,
everybody.
So much.